All right, today we're cracking open the playbook for the modern hospitality manager. We're going to distill the core principles of what makes someone truly successful in this field and turn it all into an actionable guide. We'll break down the skills, the frameworks, and the strategies that really define a top-tier manager. Ready? Let's get into it. And this quote right here, it just nails it. It really sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. Hospitality isn't just about one thing. It's this constant, high-pressure blend of managing systems, really understanding people, and making smart, strategic calls on the fly. It is a uniquely demanding environment for sure. So, to make sense of all that complexity, we've built this explainer around 5 core pillars. Think of it as our roadmap. We're going to start with the absolute basics, the manager's foundation. Then we'll dive into decision-making, cover the psychology of your teams, look at the nuts and bolts of operations, and wrap up with how to lead when things get messy. Okay, let's kick things off with Pillar 1, the manager's foundation. Because, before you can even think about managing other people or complex operations, you have to build up your own essential skill set. It all starts with you. So what does that foundation actually look like? Well, it really boils down to these 5 core skills. Think of it this way. Your technical skills, knowing the systems, that might get you the job. But it's your communication and interpersonal skills that build a loyal team that actually wants to work for you. And it's your leadership and analytical skills that let you see the bigger picture and steer that team to real success.
And those skills, they are put to the test every single day across these core responsibilities. I mean, on any given shift, you're a coach, you're an operations whiz, you're the guardian of the guest experience, and you're the person responsible for making sure all the rules are followed. It is a massive balancing act.
So once you've got those foundational skills locked in, how do you actually apply them when the pressure's on? Well, that brings us right to Pillar 2, making the right call. Because at the end of the day, great management is really defined by the quality of your decisions. When it comes to making those calls, managers basically have 2 modes. First, you've got the rational model. This is your structured, data-first approach for those big strategic choices. But then, you've got the intuitive model. That's when you rely on your gut, your experience, for those split-second decisions that have to be made right here, right now, on the floor. Let's dig a little deeper into that rational model. It's a pretty clear 4-step loop. You start by figuring out exactly what the problem is. Then you brainstorm all the possible solutions. After that, you weigh the pros and cons of each option, and finally, you pick the one that gets you closest to your goal. It's all about being deliberate, not reactive. It stops you from making those knee-jerk decisions when the stakes are high. And the good news is, you're not making these decisions in a vacuum. You've got a whole toolkit at your disposal. So beyond just brainstorming, you have something like the nominal group technique. This is a great one. Everyone writes down their ideas before sharing them. You know what that does? It stops the loudest person in the room from dominating the conversation and makes sure every single voice gets heard. And of course, you have classics like a SWOT analysis to really weigh your options from all angles. Okay, moving on to Pillar 3, mastering human dynamics. This is so crucial because in hospitality, you're not just managing a balance sheet or inventory, you're managing people. And that means both your customers and your staff. Now, this is a concept that every single service manager needs to get their head around: emotional labor. It's that invisible, often exhausting work your team does to stay positive, calm, and helpful, no matter what they're feeling on the inside or who they're dealing with. Acknowledging that effort and supporting your team through it is a huge part of being a good leader. This whole give and take is captured perfectly by something called social exchange theory. Basically, it says that every interaction is a kind of trade. A guest wants amazing service in exchange for their money. An employee wants to feel valued and satisfied at their job in exchange for their hard work. A great manager just makes sure everyone on both sides of that exchange feels like they're getting a great deal. So how do you get your whole team on the same page, feeling like they're all in it together? Well, that's the magic of group cohesiveness. When your staff genuinely feels like they belong, like they're part of a real team, they work together better, they support each other, and they're just way more effective at hitting those big goals. And building that cohesive team often comes down to your personal leadership style. Transactional leadership is that classic, if you do this, you get that kind of deal. It works. But transformational leadership, that's about inspiring your team with a shared vision, a common goal. And in an industry that is literally driven by creating experiences, getting people to believe in a mission, That is incredibly powerful.
All right, let's switch gears a bit and move to Pillar 4, engineering the operation. This is all about building the systems, the processes, and the structures that actually let your talented team shine. Now, here's the thing about structure. There's no magic bullet. It's not a one-size-fits-all deal. A functional structure, for instance, is super efficient because it groups people by what they do, but it can create those dreaded silos. A divisional structure might be great if you have multiple locations. A matrix is flexible, but man, it can get confusing. And a flat structure can be really empowering, but sometimes it lacks clear direction. The right choice really depends on what your business is trying to achieve.
So once you have a structure, you need a plan. And this 6-step process is your roadmap to get there. You set your goals, you take a hard look at where you are right now, you figure out what you need to get the job done, you create the actual plan, you put it into action, and this is the part people forget, you constantly monitor and evaluate how it's going. It's a full circle. And that last step, monitor and evaluate, that's what we call the controlling process. And look, this isn't about hovering over everyone's shoulder and micromanaging. No way. It's about course correction. You set your KPIs, you track them, you see where you're on target and where you're falling short, and you take action to get back on track. It's what makes sure your plan actually becomes a reality. Which brings us perfectly to our final pillar, navigating change and conflict. Because let's be honest, no matter how perfectly you plan, things will get turbulent. It's just inevitable. When you introduce a big change, your team almost always goes through these 3 stages. First up, you'll probably get some denial or resistance. Then, as people start to kind of test the waters of the new way, they enter this exploration phase. And finally, they integrate it, and it just becomes the new normal. Just knowing this cycle exists helps you guide your team through it with a bit more empathy and patience. And right alongside change, you're going to have conflict. The key isn't to pretend it doesn't exist. It's to manage it so it's actually constructive. The absolute foundation for that is creating a culture of respect, a place where people feel safe to speak up. You got to get to the root cause of the problem instead of just putting band-aids on the symptoms. And hey, giving your team the tools and training to handle disagreements, that's a game changer. So let's tie it all together. The modern hospitality manager's playbook is really built on these 5 key pillars. It all starts with you, with building your own foundational skills. From that strong base, you use clear frameworks to make smart decisions. You master the human side of your team, you engineer your operation to run like a well-oiled machine, and finally, you learn how to lead when the going gets tough. And that leaves us with one final, pretty important thought to chew on. See, a great manager can provide a flawless system, but it takes a great leader to create an unforgettable experience for both your guests and your staff. So the real question you have to ask yourself every day is, which one of those are you going to focus on today?